Well, for more, let's speak to Awol Allo, a lecturer at Keele University in the UK and a specialist on the Horn of Africa. Thanks so much for joining us. How optimistic are you that this revised peace agreement will actually be different from those before that did not hold?
I think it would be different, and I say it would be different for two main reasons. The first is that both parties, I think, have seen over the course of the last 5-6 years that there is simply no other way for South Sudan to go forward other than a kind of more tolerant, mutually agreed compromise. So I think that would force them. They have seen the devastating effect of the war. They have seen the complete insecurity that people live in, and people would put pressure on them. And I think they've also realized, and I've seen this from the various interviews they have given, and I think that is one reason why they would be, I think there would be a better chance for this one to work. And there is another reason. The other reason is that there is a much better I think climate broadly in the Horn of Africa now for the two countries to work together and find a way forward for some of the disagreements that would inevitably arise. So if you look at, for example, the rapprochement between Ethiopia and Eritrea, the discussion between Eritrea and Djibouti, and also with Somalia, there is a much better climate for engagement and peaceful settlement of disputes in the region at the moment. So I think this momentum would add to the already, I think, important lesson the parties have learned.
Okay, and I mean, it must be at least somewhat encouraging that Riek Machar felt the situation was stable or at least less threatening enough for him to return after 2 years.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look back on the history of the last, the few arguments and rapprochement between Machar and Salva Kiir, those were usually mostly undermined by the complete absence of trust between the parties. In 2016, in April, he returned to implement the 2015 peace accord. Then again, he left simply because there was no trust between the parties. The animosity, the division is so deep that it was almost very difficult for the two parties to take any of the agreement they signed forward. I think the fact that now he decided to return without any bodyguards or without armed groups, only with political advisors, I think that says quite a lot in terms of the level of trust that has been developed over the course of the last few months.
But I'm curious, I mean, under this new agreement, Riek Machar, from what we understand, will be the first of 5 vice presidents under a transitional government of national unity. That seems to make him a somewhat less important figure than he was under previous agreements. Will he accept that?
He's obviously accepted that agreement. This was a deal that was approved last August in Addis Ababa, and then signed this last month in September. So he knows what the deal is. I think the spokesman of the South Sudanese government recently described that deal as the final deal. Machar now said there
will
are also other
his followers
parties
accept that? Maybe I should have
Riek
asked.
Yeah. So I think it would be difficult. The path towards peace and reconciliation in South Sudan is going to be very difficult, going to be very tortuous. But I think they have learned a lesson. The broader community in East Africa has a much more, I think, stronger will and enthusiasm now to support the South Sudanese peace accord. And also the international community has been ratcheting up pressure on the South Sudanese government and the rebel leaders. So the only, I think, way for them forward in their political ambitions is to work within that peace agreement, within that framework.
Okay.
Anything outside that framework would simply means difficulties for the people and also for the leaders.
Okay, Awol Allo, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us from Keele.